Aviprishavayi. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpada Shankaram Loka Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah. Hari Om. We have to see page number 10. So he is explaining away the methodology, the prakriya. How do you talk about the truth? You can't talk about the truth which talking doesn't explain away the universe. And you can also not talk about the truth as conditioned by the universe. It should explain away the Jagat unqualified by the Jagat. This is a peculiar method called Adhyaropa Apavada Nyaya. Wherever there is a mistake about an evident fact, whether it is Rajju Sarpa or Shuktika Rajatam or anything, or even Taranga, Jala Taranga, Rajju Sarpa, Marumarichika, Shuktika Rajatam. In all these things, the method of unfoldment is only Adhyaropa Apavadanyaya. Like the 10th man also, there are also Adhyaropa Apavadanyaya. There is a 10th man who is the reality, which is at once the source of the 10th man, the person who, your search. He is at once the truth of your search and unqualified by the search. Wow. There is a 10th man who is the source of the search and yet unqualified by the search. Adhyaropa Apavadanyaya. From Adhyaropa Drishti, the source. From Swarupa Drishti, free from it. Unqualified ultimately means non-dual. The way water is at once the source and yet unqualified. The definition of the truth has to explain away everything and also explain it as it is. It has to explain away everything unconditioned by anything. Should explain away everything unqualified by anything. Should explain away everything and unconditioned, unqualified, unrelated, meaning non-duality. This is a peculiar method. This method of teaching is what we call Adhyaropa Apavada Prakriya. It has to be followed wherever there is a Mithya Jnana. Wherever there is Adhyasa. The rope is at once the source of the snake Bhranti and yet unqualified. A fact is the source of the error and yet unqualified by the error. This is what is called Adhyaropa Apavada Nyaya. So here is literature he really cares for a student's understanding. He doesn't write a book just for the sake of writing a book and then to publish his name. He cares for, because it is such a highly valuable knowledge. The truth is, it sounds funny, the truth is highly valuable. That is the sole value. Everything else is mithya. And therefore man suffers for no reason except his mental sluggage. There are so many explanations. Unka bhagya saath nahi jata, deta hai. In the previous lives, he had not done the nitya karma. These are all explanations. Why a man doesn't take interest in Vedanta? Because he doesn't have the sanskara, he doesn't have the punya karma, he doesn't have the mental purity, he doesn't have the great spiritual past. And even we say, he doesn't have the exposure to Vedanta, etc. But in my individual thinking, it is independent of anything, by dint of having sheer intelligence, one can become inquisitive about one's existence. That inquisitiveness, wonder at what am I? Why do I find? All of a sudden, where do I spring from? All of a sudden, where do I disappear? All of a sudden, क्या हो जाता है? Some kind of inquisitiveness. By dint of sheer intelligence, man can become inquisitive. And once a person becomes inquisitive, that inquisitiveness takes him to the pramana. It's like saying a blind man cries for sight. Sometime or the other, maybe in some life, you can get the sight because you pray for it. Wherever there is inquisitiveness, that inquisitiveness leads the person to the fulfillment. Every desire moves towards its fulfillment. A desire's fulfillment may not be the person's fulfillment. That's a different matter. But a desire, when you entertain a desire, then its job is to move towards its fulfillment. But despite the desire's fulfillment, you will have frustration. That's a different matter. Supposing I want to have money, in some life you will get money. Because the desire that is there in your heart, it does the job of moving you towards the fulfillment of that. That is the law. Sankalpa inspires you to work in that direction. Sankalpa is very powerful. Motives are very powerful, Ji. You can't look upon a motive as just another thought. Motive is something, a longing that takes place in the heart of the truth. A truth's longing. Everything else is just an error. The longing is also, but then it is a different thing. It's a sankalpa. I want it. I want my son to be happy. I want my daughter to be happy. That's sankalpa. It works. To what degree it works, that is unimportant. My siddhantam is, it does work. Intentions have their effect. That's why Subramanya Swami said, I don't know all about the people are saying, but one thing I am clear, because a man, he never talks without pramana or his own insight. He says, I have no doubt regarding the good intentions of Modi boss. Whether his friends knew or not, वो सब मुझे मालूम नहीं है. but his good intentions, and therefore his good intentions, I am telling you, it may have hurt many people. It may have hurt millions of people, I understand. But yet, all those people who have been hurt will also really admire it when the country starts doing it, doing well. Who knows? So, sankalpa. And therefore, the desire is something that it has an effect. And adhyaropi, even though desire is also adhyaropitam, but it will have. Even the desire is explained away by adhyaropa apavadanya. That longing, it takes place in the heart of the truth. Therefore, that 10th man's longing, that 10th man's struggle is explained away. See, the 10th man is the truth of that very longing. And yet it is free from, it is unqualified by the longing. Therefore, when a person somehow or other with great intelligence becomes inquisitive with all these thoughts, that inquisitiveness, the love to know the truth, takes him to its fulfillment. And the Siddhantam is every desire moves towards its fulfillment. I entertain a desire and I become restless because I want the fulfillment right now. But the truth is, every desire will take its time to reach its fulfillment. Its direction is towards its object. Therefore, inquisitive. Therefore, why is it that man suffers? Because he doesn't become inquisitive about his existence. I don't think inquisitiveness is born after exposure to Vedanta. Inquisitiveness takes one to Vedanta. Inquisitiveness is independent of Vedanta, please. A speculator speculates as a part of his career, not his innate inquisitiveness. There are people who study Indian philosophy as a part of their career. It is a breadwinner. It's looking for a degree, looking for a qualification, so that you can get a job, so that you can get your bread and butter. It's not considered to be inquisitive. The inquisitiveness is something, it doesn't allow you anything else in your mind. You get really gripped by that inquisitivity. It is not an ordinary inquisitiveness. The inquisitiveness about an object is time bound. It's nothing. But the inquisitiveness about one's existence is inquisitiveness about the truth, about oneself. What is this existence of me? And you say, what is this me? That is why Shankaracharya defines inquisitiveness. Before the exposure to Vedanta, what is the nature of inquisitiveness? Koham. Kuta aya. मैं कौन हूँ, मैं कहाँ से आया हूँ, and where am I going to reach? What is my destiny? I mean, what is all this? What is all this? What is the reason behind finding myself this? And pain, I feel it. Pleasure, I feel it. What is all this? So inquisitiveness is not conditional. it can be independent of the exposure to Vedanta. I would like to say, share intelligence. Intelligence is not only just really, intelligence is not meant only to help me choose. Because choice can take place even by instincts. Even though it looks like independent choice, maybe it's programmed. Our choice is also programmed. I am programmed to be an animal. A tiger is programmed to be a carnivorous animal. A cow is programmed to be a herbivorous animal. And a man is programmed to be sometimes herbivorous, sometimes carnivorous. क्या हो गया? Choice is not a big thing. I can always say I am also programmed. But inquisitiveness is not programmed. I have to respond. I have to wonder at my existence. And therefore man suffers due to lack of inquisitiveness. And a lack of inquisitiveness, due to lack of inquisitiveness, when there is no inquisitiveness, if a person, even he studies Vedanta, he doesn't move ahead. My existence is evident. My intelligence is there. Therefore, I don't have to wait for anything to be inquisitive. The intelligence can make me wonder at my existence. Ascharyavat pashyati. So, my definition is inquisitiveness is not born of Vedanta. Inquisitiveness takes you to Vedanta. Tad vijnanartham sa gurumeva vigachet. Let an jignasu go to a teacher. Let an inquisitive person, a person who is in the grip of this thought, what could I be? What is this life about? What is this death? Like Nachiketa, He went to Nachiketa after he became, his inquisitiveness took him to the Lord Yama. If the inquisitiveness takes you to the teacher, it works. Sometimes, exposure to Vedanta also may make you inquisitive. But that inquisitiveness would be very, very artificial. But the innate inquisitiveness, by birth it is inquisitive. You are inquisitive. Even as a schoolboy, you start thinking, what is it all about? Now you may say, Swamiji, that inquisitiveness is born in the mind of a boy because of his sanskara. No, any person, with or without sanskara, a person by dint of sheer intelligence, you can become inquisitive, curious, yes. If I can be inquisitive about things around, if a child can be inquisitive about what is in the drawing room, ye kya hai, wo kya hai, wo kya hai. But it is possible to be inquisitive about oneself. But it doesn't happen. It should happen, but it doesn't happen. And therefore, I would say man suffers because he doesn't use his situation to his benefit. He uses his situation just to follow the beaten path, the conventional path. He doesn't really use his situation fully to his advantage. So now this adhyaropa apavada nyaya is being talked about. The first line, ya punaha shrutihi jagataha karyatvam brahmanaha tat karanatvam cha bruvana सा ब्रह्मात्मैकत्व अवधारणार्थाय एव न तु कार्यकारणभावस्य सत्यतां वक्तुं प्रवृत्ता. Up to that, the meaning is, I read a sentence and I will give you the gist of it. I can't explain every word of Sanskrit. It's not possible. Because if you know Sanskrit, it's no problem. Up to that pravritta, the essence of this sentence is, when the Shruti talks about Brahman as the Jagat Karanam, it is not for proving the event of creation. It is for proving the oneness, which is not an event. Or, when the Shruti talks about Brahman as Jagat Karanam, it is not for proving the source and creation relationship. We talk about the creation to prove oneness. That Brahman is the source, that the Jagat is the creation, is a part of Prakriya. What is the intention? Oneness. To show oneness. Sir, if Brahman is the source and Jagat is the creation, and the Jagat is non-separate from the source, and therefore the creation is non-separate from the source, and therefore it is oneness. And therefore, if you have to prove the source-creation relationship, then the creation has to be real. Like between the cause and effect relation. The milk is the cause, the curd is the effect, but there is a real cause and effect relation between the milk and the curd. There is a change. We can't say the milk is real and the curd is mithya. There is no satya mithya bhava. But here when we say the water is the source, the wave is the creation, between the source and the creation there is satya. Wherever there is satya mithya bhava, there is oneness. Wherever there is satya mithya bhava, there is oneness. We use a double language, water, wave, etc. And we talk about the creation of the wave. We talk, in fact, mithya triggers a lot of literature. Truth doesn't trigger any literature. Truth doesn't trigger any literature. Truth simply, you can't write literature about the truth. But when there is a mithya, for negating that mithya we have to, there is a lot. Even though Vedanta, even though truth doesn't trigger literature, but yet the whole Shastra is literature about the truth in relation to the mithya. In the context of adhyasa. You have to talk a lot to a person to clear his confusion. Literature works on human thinking, it doesn't work on the truth. Teaching works on human thinking. That's called education. How I think, how I look at myself. Therefore, this first sentence, the essence is, Brahman is the source, and Shruti talks about Brahman as the Jagat Karanam, not for proving Brahman as Jagat Karanam, or for proving Jagat as the Karyam. It is for proving that there is no Karya Karana Bhava, there is oneness. Strange. You talk about the Karya Karana Bhava to prove that there is no Karya Karana Bhava. Rama. To literally prove. You talk about the Karya Karana Bhava to show that there is no Karya Karana Bhava. There is only oneness. You talk about the source-creation relationship just to show that there is no relationship. There is only oneness. Freedom from relationship is not by way of distance, please. Freedom from relationship is non-duality. Like rope is free from the snake, not because it is distant from the snake. Rope is free from the snake, not because it is distant from the snake. It is its nature. And therefore, even in Vairagya, in order to have a relative freedom, we keep distance. That is accepted. That is spatial distance, mental distance. I keep a distance. But in oneness, I don't have to keep any distance because there is nothing else. In the deep sleep state, there is nothing else. So I don't have to keep a distance from anything. Rope doesn't have to keep a distance from the snake. Water doesn't have to keep a distance from the wave. Brahman doesn't have to keep a distance. That is why he is ekant by nature. He is non-dual, he is alone, solid. That is the eternal solitude. Truth is the eternal solitude. And therefore, so when the Shruti talks about the Karyakarana Bhava between Jagat and Brahma, people get deluded, confused. Oh my God, Bhagavan created the Jagat. And वो भी अपने आप से निकल गए. Really, he created the world out of himself. And without change also. And then the Shruti gives the example like spider. Yathoranavihi srijate grinate cha. Just as a spider weaves the web from its own navel or from its own saliva, and it is the spinner and also the material. Similarly, Bhagavan also spins everything. He creates everything out of himself. Tatparyam is he looks like this. But anyway, the source-creation relationship. Wherever there is a Maya Srishti, the creation is non-separate from the source. Now I am going to continue this. Why do we say if there is a source and creation relationship or cause and effect if there is a cause and effect relation between milk and curd, there is no oneness. There are two. The milk undergoes change to become curd. There are two. The idea of milk is a reality and the idea of curd is a reality. The milk undergoes change. The milk was real, the curd is also real. And the curd will not remain curd, it will change and become something else and something else, it goes on changing. So every effect is as real as the cause. There oneness is not possible. Where the creation is real, where the creation becomes real, only when the cause undergoes change or the source undergoes change to become that creation. I am not using the word cause for the universe, for the Brahman. Even if I use it, it's a changeless cause. ठीक है? Unchanging cause. Adhisthana Karanam. Unchanging cause, unchanging source. A better term is source. Suppose we use the word Adhisthana Karanam, means unchanging cause. It doesn't matter. Which word we use hardly matters as long as we understand it correctly. So wherever there is a cause and effect relationship through change, there is no oneness. Oneness is there only where there is cause and effect relation, but without change. And between the Brahman and Jagat, Brahman is the Satyam, Jagat is Mithya. The milk doesn't look like curd, the milk becomes curd. That makes it real. It becomes. There is a becoming. Brahman doesn't become Jagat. Brahman looks like Jagat or seen as Jagat. ऐसा भी होता है स्वामी, why not? Dream looks like things. Dream also looks like real. Dream objects look like real. Therefore, just as there is a phenomenon in this world a phenomenon called becoming, there is also a phenomenon called looking different. Becoming different is available around. Looking different also is available. जी, इसमें क्या है? Adhyasa, Parinama is available in the creation. Even Adhyasa is available. Rajju Sarpa is Adhyasa. Rope looks like snake. Therefore, Brahman doesn't become Jagat. Technically doesn't become Jagat. It is seen as Jagat or it looks Jagat, etc. etc. Yata sakaryasya mithyattvameva aha. Why is between Brahman and Jagat there is oneness? Because there is always oneness between Mithya and Satyam. The false is one with the reality. Meaning the false is rooted in the reality. What do you mean by saying false is rooted in the reality? False, in the light of the reality, the false is falsified. It is ananya, it is non-separate. Wave judged as water is water. Then there is no wave. Where was the wave? Wave was not there. It was in my thinking. Vacharam manam vikaro namadeyam. It is in my thinking. That means wave is a thinking. Water is the reality. Jagati is a perception. Embodiment is a perception. Brahmatvam is a reality. Therefore, when I judge the Jagat as the drashta, just as I can judge the wave as water, just as I can judge the snake as the rope, just as we can judge the table as the wood, it is also possible to judge the universe as the seer, the drashta, because the Jagat is made of the drashta. As the drashta as the material, drashta as the material is Ishvara. Drashta as material is Ishvara. Therefore, drashta's swarupa is oneness. If the material is, if drashta himself is the source, then the drashta is non-dual. First I have to discover drashta is different from drishyam. And as distinct from drishyam, it is Jagat Karanam, the sole drashta of the Jagat. Drashta as the sole drashta is Jagat Karanam. As Jagat Karanam, it is non-dual. It explains away the Jagat. It at once explains away everything and also stands as non-dual. And therefore, the Srishti being Maya, Mithya, there is oneness. Between Satyam and Mithya there is oneness. Oneness means it's not togetherness of two. If the wave is one with water, then there is oneness of water. And it's not oneness of water and wave. Ye nahi hai. Because the wave is non-separate from water, therefore the water is non-dual. Water is one. If the table is one with, it's non-separate from wood, then the wood has Oneness. Therefore, oneness is the nature of the truth. Oneness is not a combination of truth and error. Oneness. Because the wave is non-separate, ananya, non-separate from water, therefore water alone is. Because the table is non-separate from wood, therefore the wood alone is. Because the mind is non-separate from the drashta, therefore drashta alone is. Because the jagat is non-separate from the drashta, therefore drashta alone is. Therefore, oneness is what? It is the oneness of the being, not the oneness of both the Satyam and then it becomes togetherness. We are one. When we say, is it oneness or togetherness? बस इतना ही है. ये समझ गए तो वेदांत बहुत समझ गए. That means, you study and study and study and study to understand the difference between oneness and togetherness. Yes. Because man is so casual, he doesn't give attention to all these things. Oneness is the truth, Ji. Truth is not in the form of togetherness. Because togetherness is always followed by division. Friends fall apart, Ji. Bhakta Bhagavan fall apart. If Bhagavan doesn't give you what you want, you say, Bhagavan ji, आपको भी देख लिया. नहीं कहते जी? आपको भी देख लिया. मैंने बहुत कुछ देख लिया, लेकिन अभी लेटेस्ट आपको भी देख लिया. ये सब प्रॉब्लम्स हो जाता है जी. All together, togetherness is nothing. Togetherness is not our answer. Understanding oneness is the answer. Oneness of our being. So I have explained away the crucial point. Why is there oneness between the source and the creation? Because the creation is mithya and the source is the source. Where there is satya mithya bhava, there alone there is oneness. But where there is cause and effect relationship through causation, there is no oneness. There is eternal change. It goes on changing. And the idea of the milk is real. The idea of the curd is real. And then the curd becomes the butter, that is also real. In this world, this is called parinami srishti. A seed was real, it becomes a plant, it is real, and the plant becomes a tree, it is real. This is all what? Parinama. Change, transformation. But God did not transform to become the world. Tasrishtva tadevanu pravishatu. It's a very big vakya. Having created the universe as he is without any change, he becomes the jiva. He remains himself. He remains unlimited and looks at jiva. He remains unlimited, looks the jagat. He remains unlimited and looks the jiva. Like the conscious being remaining conscious without getting affected in its conscious element, in its conscious identity, he becomes a dreamer. The conscious becomes the dreamer. Dreamer is a time-bound label. It's an erroneous label. Conscious identity is not a label. That's its nature. To be a dreamer is not our nature. To be a waker is not our nature. To be a sleeper also is not our nature. But to be the experience, to be conscious is our nature. That doesn't go. Therefore, in understanding our conscious identity, our three labels get falsified. That I am a waker, I am a dreamer, I am a sleeper. These three get also. Therefore, where is the oneness? Where there is source-creation relation. Where there is Satya-Mithya relation, there is oneness. Where there is cause and effect relationship through change, there is no oneness. There is eternal change. Because you can't stop change, Ji. It's also big wisdom. In the society, the change goes on. Now you can't stop that change. People's minds change. Today they all say Modi, 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 and tomorrow they may say something else. Change. We don't know, Ji. Change is something that you can't stop. Swami Chinmayanand used to say, very nice to remember in the morning, all our elders. He used to say, there is a growing tree, Ji, and you tie the trunk with an iron, with a steel thread. Okay? Thick steel thread you tie it. The tree will overgrow the steel thread. It will get buried. Because the steel thread doesn't grow, whereas the tree is growing. You call it growing, I would call it changing. The steel thread doesn't change, the tree is changing. Not that the society is growing, it is changing. There is no growth. Growth is always through looking at one's existence more seriously. That is growth. Without shifting my attention to myself, there is no growth, Ji. It is all just a change. Instead of studying, in Delhi, you go and study in England. It is not a big growth, it is only a change. Instead of speaking Indian way of English, you speak British way of English. That is just a change, Ji. You go to America and you speak American slang. Is it a big growth? It is just a change. Because when something changes, we think it is growth. No, it is just a change, boss. And nobody can stop change. Satya-Mithya Bhava remains the same. It is eternal. Brahman remains the Satyam and the whole Jagat become Mithya, and even the changes in the Jagat also become Mithya. The seed is Mithya in contrast to Brahman. The plant is Mithya, the tree is Mithya, the furniture is Mithya. Every bit of creation and all that happens in the creation is Mithya. Therefore, Satya Mithya Bhava is. Neither Mithyatvam is growing, nor Satyatvam is growing. It's amazing, Ji. I hope you are able to follow this point. The fact that the Jagat is Mithya is not changing. The fact that the Brahman is Satyam also is not changing. And the fact there is oneness of Brahman also is not changing. Therefore, all the changes are a part of that Mithya. Mithya doesn't change. What changes is Mithya. This equation is important. Mithya doesn't change. Nor does the change establish Mithyatva. Change is not a clue to Mithyatva. In fact, for it to its Mithyatvam, there is no clue except one's existence. And one's existence is the clue to its Mithyatvam. But I have to look at my existence as I am. But I don't look at my existence as I am. I have no pramana. I always live with the idea I am only the form. But the three states can give you? No, because I always live with the idea that I am a form in the waking state, I am a form also in the dream state. I am connected to the forms, I am a form, and in the deep sleep state I disappear. I can't change this idea. I can't convince myself against it. I may pick up a terminology as different from my perception, but it doesn't convince me against my perception. That is a difference. When I read the literature, it doesn't convince me against my thinking that I am only a form. And therefore, Mithyatvam doesn't change, and there is no Mithya doesn't change. What looks changeful is Mithya. ये बहुत बड़ी बात है जी. Mithya is not big. Whatever looks big is Mithya. The big is Mithya. The small is Mithya. Not the Mithya is bigger. See, there is a big difference between putting the horse before the cart and cart before the... Yes. If you say the Mithya changes, no, Mithya doesn't change. Mithya is. What changes is Mithya. The big is Mithya. What looks small is Mithya. What is seen, Drishyam is Mithya. Even Drashtru-Drishya relationship is Mithya. Anything that I can make a comment on is Mithya. All that is commentable is Mithya. All the Abhidhana is Mithya. Abhidheyam also is Mithya. The many are Mithya. The Mithya are not many. What look like many are Mithya. Don't say Mithya is in the form of matter. No. Matter is Mithya. Mind is Mithya. Anything other than the truth is Mithya. Tatonyad artam. Shruti says, Tataha anyat artam. Other than yourself, other than the self is all artham mithya, anritam. Anritam. Tatonyad artam, anritam. Therefore, anritam, the mithya cannot be qualified. Whatever can be qualified is? That is. Think like that. Mithya cannot be qualified. Mithya has no adjective. Anything that has an adjective, mithya. It is non-separate from the truth. And therefore, the Shastra's teaching is all that looks this, that is mithya. Therefore it doesn't change, etc. Natu satyatvam api. But we can't say this is Srishti being a mithya, Brahman being a satyam, there is oneness. But we can't say Jagat is both mithya and satyam. It is only mithya. Brahman is solely the satyam. Jagat is solely mithya. Nadu satyatvam api yena brahmanaha prapancha karanatva para iti kalpeta. If the Jagat were real, then we can think that the Shruti wants to convey to us, it wants to prove the Karya Karana Bhava between Jagat and Brahma. When the Karyam is not real, when the Karanam is real, Karyam is not real, and if you talk about the Karya Karana Bhava, if you talk about such a Karanam and such a Karyam, and a real Karanam, an unreal Karyam, if you talk about, it is only to convey the oneness, not to convey a relation of oneness. Shruti is not interested in conveying a relationship. Shruti is interested in conveying oneness. Nadu satyatmapi, this is over. Tathahi ena shrutam shrutam bhavati. You see, if the source is real and the creation is unreal, then this statement works. How? By knowing the Satyam, you come to know all the Mithya as non-separate from Satyam. Therefore, yena shrutam shrutam bhavati, amatam matam bhavati, avijñātam vijñātam bhavati, iti chandogya shrutihi eka vijñānena sarva vijñānam pratigñāya tatra drishtanta apekshāyam aha yatha somye ekena mritpindena sarvam mrinmayam vijñātagam syat vācārambhanam vikāro namadheyam mritika ityeva satyamiti. Supposing you say by knowing one water, you come to know all the waves as water. When is this possible? When the water is Satyam and the waves are Mithya, not otherwise. By knowing one milk, you come to know all the curds, you can't say. Because curd is not non-separate from milk. Milk is gone. The milk has undergone change to become curd. Therefore, by knowing one cause, you come to know all the effects. If they have a cause and effect relationship through change, then it doesn't work. Therefore, where there is Satyamithya relationship, where there is Satyamithya bhava, there, by knowing the Satyam, you come to know all the Mithya as non-separate from Satyam. And the Tatparyam being the Ekatvam of the Satyam. Satyame alone is. What about the Mithya Jagat that is non-separate from the Satyam? Looks separate, but it's non-separate. Mithya exists in the perception, call it perception of the drashta, perception of the truth, that is immaterial. But it is there only in the perception. Whose perception? That hardly matters. The perception. Whether you perceive the snake or I perceive the snake or Bhagavan perceives the snake. The great glory is the rope is independent of perception, but snake is only a perception. Whosoever, that is immaterial. Mithya is a perception, Satyam is one's being. And now, asya arthaha ekena mritpindena paramartataha mridatmana vijñātena sarvam mrinmayam ghata sharavādi mridatmakameva iti yatha vijñāyate. By knowing the one clay, you come to know all that is made of clay. Made of clay. Not the effects of change. Made of clay. I come to know all that is made of clay as clay. I can't come to know curd as milk. By knowing the milk, I can't say the curd is not milk. Curd is curd. Curd is not mithya. Curd is as satyam as milk. And therefore, by knowing one thing, you come to know everything, provided that one thing is satyam and everything else is mithya. Satyamithya bhava is there wherever there is maya srishti, or wherever there is adhyasa. Satyamithya bhava. Therefore, between the truth and our life, there is Satyamithya bhava. Between the truth between our being and our life, there is Satyamithya bhava. Let me put it this way. Between our unlimited being and our embodiment, there is Satyamithya bhava. like between the being of water and its own perception that I am a wave, there is Satyamitya Bhava. When the water says I am the wave, that is its perception. But as water, that is its being. Understand? To be water is its being. When it says I am a wave and suffering, then what is it? It's a correctable perception. Life is a perception. Whose perception? That is unimportant. It's perception. It is, when we say perception, it is in contrast to your question. The right question should be, is there something that is not perception? Rather than ask a question, whose perception? I say the idea of whose also is perception. If you say my perception, that mineness also is a perception. See, his perception, your perception, is all just whose perception is wrong. When the water says I am the wave, what is that wave? It is perception. And its identity as he itself is the wave, itself also is the water. The same is both the wave and water. It is wave by its perception, it is water by its being. I am a form by my perception. I am a form by correctable perception. And I am the drashta, I am the being, unlimited being by our nature. Thus there is a distinction between being and perception. Perception depends upon the being, but the being does not depend upon perception. Mithya depends upon Satyam, Satyam does not depend upon Mithya. This is all called Adhyaropa Apavada Prakriya. Natu Ghata Sharavadikam Swataha Evasti. He explains, pot and etc., what is made of clay is never independent of clay. Independent clay means it cannot exist separate from clay. This idea is very interesting. Pot has no existence separate from clay. It is amazing. Think of a thought minus the thinker. Think of a thought minus the thinker. No. That makes it mithya. Non-separateness makes it mithya. That is why in Naishkarmya Siddhi I said, when a person wakes up from the dream, he sees its non-eternity, he doesn't see its false mithyatva. Mithyatvam is clinched by its non-separateness from the drashta. Negation proves its non-eternity. You can't falsify something unless you see its non-separateness from the reality behind it. This thinking destroys Buddhism. This destroys Buddhism if you leisurely think how beautiful is this Vedic thinking. The Buddhism, see, Buddha we respect, that's different. A very peaceful man, that's different. But Buddhism, we don't know what Buddha was, who Buddha was, etc. But we don't know. We can't make a comment upon Buddha because we haven't seen him. But I can definitely comment upon the Buddhistic literature which is there right in front of me. Buddhistic literature has come down to us. So when I go through that literature, then I can comment upon it. I say it is useless because they say, if thought is what we call momentary, kshanikam means it's false. Even if you say it is momentary, The momentary must presuppose the eternal. And the eternal cannot be the eternal presence of something, not the eternal absence of something. Therefore, nobody can talk about the falsity of anything. You can't even talk about the non-eternity because there is only Srishti, Sthiti, Laya, Srishti, Sthiti, Laya. Where is non-eternity? It continues. Continuity. The dream takes place, begins, ends, and again it begins, manifests and unmanifest. Therefore, there is a pravaha nityatvam. Pravaha nityatvam means it continues in a cycle. And therefore, when in a given state we say it is non-eternal, people do think in terms of non-eternity because it is experienced. But even their idea of non-eternity is wrong. Why? Because life is not non-eternal. Life has continuity either as manifest or unmanifest. Either there is pravaha continuity, pravaha nityatvam, or it is kutastha nityatvam. Sat has kutastha nityatvam. Mithya has pravaha. Therefore, it is pravaha nityam, but it is mithya. Therefore, when a person wakes up from the dream and he says the dream is non-eternal, all right, we give him some concession, all right. You understand the non-eternity of the dream, but that non-eternity is different from falsity. Because falsity, mithyatvam, means understanding its non-separateness from the very seer makes it mithya. That man doesn't understand. He only sees that the dream is gone, but he doesn't see that the dream is non-separate from the one who sees. You can't trace the drishyam to something else other than the drashta. There is nothing else. I can't trace the drishyam to another drishyam. It is meaningless. What is available is the object and subject. If I have to trace the object, I have to trace it to the subject first. But in order to trace the object to the subject must be understood as pure solely the subject. The subject is not an object. The subject which is solely the subject, to that subject I can trace the objects. Therefore, drishyam is non-separate from drashta. And therefore, drashta, as the source of the drishyam, is tat padartha. Drashta is tvam padartha. Drashta as drashta is tvam padartha. Drashta as the source, tat padartha. Are you able to follow? Drashta as drashta is tvam padartha. Drashta as the source, it becomes the tat padartha. Therefore, the Shruti, what does the Shruti say? Tat padartha is, tat is tvam. It is a drashta which looks like me is indeed Jagat Karana, because you can't trace the Jagat to anything other than the seer, because nothing else is available. You can't trace the Jagat to another Jagat. Clear, Ji? We'll continue it all this. Very, very interesting thoughts. Are they not interesting? Even if they are not interesting, please say. Please say they are interesting. Or at least you can say, thoda bahut theek hai. Purnamadaha purnamidam purnat purnamudachyate purnasya purnamadaya purnameva vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you, Ji. We can have Sanskrit, Ji? Or you want to go? Sanskrit class we can have, Ji? थोड़ा बहुत ले लेंगे, because tomorrow there will be no Sanskrit class. That's why today we can